Welcome to Beyond My Comic Shop. I am your host, Anthony Desiato. Beyond My Comic Shop is a sub-series of My Comic Shop history, featuring stories in and around the comic book world. This sub-series was previously known as Flat Squirrel Tales, but following a crisis on Infinite Podcasts, all of my shows now live under the My Comic Shop History podcast feed. This installment originally aired as an episode of Flat Squirrel Tales last season. It features a man who has worn many hats in the comics industry: retailer, editor, and creator. Once upon a time, Brandon Montclare was my boss at Alternate Realities. Today, he is the writer and co-creator of Rocket Girl and the writer of Marvel's GIRL and Devil Dinosaur. Our conversation begins with a discussion of the recent Rocket Girl coloring book Kickstarter campaign and takes off from there. My Comic Shop History, Beyond My Comic Shop, and My Comic Shop Book Club will all return with new episodes later in 2018. For now, enjoy this presentation of Creator Chat with Brandon Montclare. You and Amy recently successfully funded a Rocket Girl coloring book on Kickstarter.
Yeah, that was fun, and it's coming together, and it'll be going out soon. But it was like a little thing, kind of an anniversary. We started Rocket Girl on Kickstarter, and Kickstarter's a lot of work, so we said, let's do something simple, and we just did a 1-week campaign for a coloring book, which I keep goofing saying. It's a very last year type of idea, but we certainly got funded, digging it. It's come together beautifully. People are going to be really happy when it arrives in the mail, and it was just fun. It was, and one of the reasons we like Kickstarter is talking to fans and interacting with them and getting people excited. So, with the return of the regular issues in the store, it was something we wanted to do. So,
you guys exceeded your funding goal very quickly too.
Yeah, it was a pretty modest goal. But enough to get it done, and again, hopefully, people excited about it. I mean, I don't want to jinx anybody's Kickstarter who might be sitting across the table from me. But one of the great things about Kickstarter that people don't appreciate about it, and for obvious reasons, is if you don't make your funding, right? It just means that there wasn't support there wasn't interest. So we picked a reward that if there's enough people who want a coloring book, we'll make the reward, and then we'll make the coloring book. So,
for you guys now, you've done, again, this was the third one that you did, right? Because you did Halloween Eve.
Yep.
You did Rocket Girl, and now the coloring book.
Yeah.
So, I think you have a sense at this point of how many people you can mobilize and what you can kind of raise. Is there ever do you ever have to restrain yourselves and is there something where we could kickstart this, but maybe let's ease off and not go to that well too many times?
Yes, and I think we've done 3, but it's been 4 years or something like that. So we certainly don't keep going back to it. Maybe not though. Now that we did this, it was kind of, like I said, quick and it's easy. It's like, if we want to raise $4,000 or $5,000, which will pay for the stuff, make it worth our while to put a little bit in our pocket, but only a very little bit, because most of that, I don't even know what we raised for, $4,500, something like that, is going to go to the printing the coloring books and mailing them out to people. But yeah, it seems like, and it's different. And I think we were at one point a little nervous. Not that it would be taking a step back, but if we launched Halloween Eve, and that was nice, and then we launched Rocket Girl, was a bigger type of book, and then that was even a bigger response. So there's something you're somewhat compelled, at least a part of me, to say, okay, now I have to do a bigger book and a bigger Kickstarter and keep raising the bar. But I was able to step back and do it really simple and with a low goal and like I said, really modest. That maybe that opens the floodgates too, where it's like, oh yeah, I don't think we're going to do coloring books 2 through 10, but yeah, maybe. And I like doing it. I like interacting with fans. I always have fond memories of packing all the envelopes and working with people and sending it out and that type of stuff. Probably in the middle of doing it, you get frustrated, but just like I said, it fits. So yeah, I think I will do a couple more Kickstarters now. So if anything, I'm not going to pull back. I might do some more, but yeah, they'll be the small ones, and there's nothing on the immediate horizon. So
Cool. And speaking of Rocket Girl, so it was on hiatus for a while, right? How long was it off?
It was unbelievable. It's like I don't even want to confirm how long it's been because it was so much, but a year, more than a year.
Okay.
But before we resolicited 8, 9, and 10, we're all done, all colored, 100% ready to go. So.
And I saw one of the interviews that you gave, I think it was at the 5 Points Festival recently, where, so the 10 issues, like that was intended to be maybe the conclusion of the first major storyline. Is that the idea?
Yeah, exactly. When we first did it, we figured it, Halloween Eve was a one-shot. Rocket Girl, we do 5 issues. It was really too tight a story for 5 issues. We would have made it work, but it was successful enough that we said, hey, we can make this kind of first arc 10. And if those 10 first came out quicker, we plans for 11, plans for going beyond that, but it would be a very different direction. 1 through 10 is kind of the story that we always kind of had in our head. At one point, that we tried to fit into 5 issues, but very quickly, probably in between the first and second issue, we said, no, we should really let this breathe. So.
And if you don't mind me asking, the reason for the hiatus, was it just
getting it done? Yeah. There's a lot of drawing, a lot of coloring, a lot of stuff to get going. And, curveballs get thrown your way. We did Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which was, I don't want to speak for Amy, so I don't know how big a distraction it was for her, but I'm guessing it was something of a distraction because she took herself off of it to kind of finish up Rocket Girl. And I don't think it was hours of the day. We said, well, co-write it to a cover. That's what Amy's responsibilities were on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, because it takes so long to do an issue of Rocket Girl and to color it and to design it and to letter it. She does everything and put so much effort into it. Moon Girl would be kind of a way that she could be present on the shelves every month. And it was great, and I think we're both very proud of it. Again, I don't like talking for her. But, I think it was kind of like a distraction type of thing. It wasn't even so much that she spent all day writing a script or all day working on a cover. That takes plenty of time, but it was also just not being able to kind of sit and focus on stuff. And my contributions too. It's kind of like if I have 7 days to do something that takes 1 day, I'll take 8 days to do it. You know what I mean? And instead of getting it done that first day, so it was just slow. Same reason all books are late.
When you have a hiatus like that, I mean, is there a fear that people lose
hiatus
interest?
is like a nice word that we even just use. It was just like, it's just a delay.
Well, that makes it sound like
book's on hiatus. It makes it sound like you somehow it was accounted for.
Yeah, but exactly.
And I'll still say hiatus, so I'm not trying to call bullshit on myself.
I'll go with that too.
I could, yeah.
Is there that fear that people lose interest? Like, how do you keep the audience engaged?
and they have, it's weird because, Rocket Girl always performed a little bit differently than the typical book. And there are a lot of books nowadays that perform a little bit differently. And the market's changed a lot in the last, even in the last 5 years that Rocket Girl's been out, or 4 years that it's been out. And certainly the year plus that since the last issue came out, or I should say the last issue of the original run. But those were very late also, especially 6 and 7. But there really was, there was a hope because the trade paperback has always sold and still sells and has legs. Sold a lot of the first trade, still sell it, had to reprint it in the middle of that year-long hiatus. When it came back, the single issue sales from the stores were really, disappointing because you thought they'd be higher, but expected to where they are. So the trade coming out in December, we're really kind of hoping, is where we take a bite because already 8 and 9 are out and 10 is out in a couple of weeks, and the sales have not really been there. So.
Was there anything that you did during the hiatus or after those initial orders came in to try to get people into it again?
Yeah, especially the retailer, because in a lot of ways, the retailer is your customer, So we did some direct outreach. We worked with a guy named Matt Klein, who works at Forbidden Planet, but he also does kind of direct sales for Valiant, and he does direct sales on a freelance basis.
Yeah, you put me in touch with him.
Yeah, I think that was just to kind of, because he's also at Forbidden Planet, but he's literally a guy for Valiant who calls up the store owners of the world saying, hey, how are you doing? How are sales? And, so we had him do the outreach for us, one, for time, but two, because he could, we knew that there'd be retailers who were not so happy with the delays on the book. And, and in addition to that, you try to get your fans into it to talk about it and ask their retailers. And, nobody's sitting on, oh my God, I have a ton of copies of my 8 and 9. I mean, I think if, it sold in more, those copies would have moved. Nobody, I don't think, is sitting on tons of copies of 6s and 7s and 1, 2, 3, 4s and 5s. But, there's only so much shelf space. There's only so much attention. Super proud of the books. I really do. I know they're going to find the readers anyway. So it just would be nice to, have made a bigger splash. As it would be nice to make a bigger splash than we made the first time. It would be nice to equal splash that you took a step back. It's what happens. It's what happens when you take a year off. It's not anyone's fault but our own. So,
was there any specific feedback that you heard from the retailers through Matt?
Yeah, it's late. It's yeah. I mean, you can't blame them. I feel sometimes I can spar with people because I was a retailer for a long time, but not when I'm sitting on a book that's that late. So, it is what it is. And, the quality's there. It's a great book. It's going to be collected well. I think one day, 100 years from now, when people are reading Rocket Girl, 1 through 10 will probably be like a single edition, single trade paperback. We got the second volume to kind of finish it off. And like I said, it's a good story. It hasn't diminished any kind of interest in Hollywood or in the places that want to kind of develop it. Now that it's back, we've been a little bit more attentive to it. It's been getting some, the press that it gets kind of always spurs that type of thing. So on that end, it's fine. Reprint is, like I said, the trade paperback is doing well. Foreign reprints, there's still the interest that there's always been. So it's not like it killed the book because, and this is, what you've been talking about your entire podcast, or at least why I listen to it, the main podcast, is that the business is changing. And, I'm not trying to say that to thumb my nose at the retailers who ordered a couple thousand less copies of Rocket Girl number 9, but it really is. There's other ways that the book makes money, and those channels are still pretty strong. And I wish it was strong in the direct market. Nobody loves comic shops more than me.
Yeah, of course. You were one of the owners of Alternate Realities, and I had you on My Comic Shop History in Season 1, and we talked about your tenure as owner of AR.
Right.
But yeah, on that note of your experience as a retailer, and since I know you said that you've listened to some of the My Comic Shop History episodes. I mean, I don't know, is there anything that you want to share based on what you've been hearing from other retailers? Any takeaways or anything that it's kind of spurred in your own head about the industry, where it is, where it's going?
And I'm anticipating what we're going to talk about today. And I know, like I said, this is more of the personalities behind the business episode of the version of what Anthony does. So it's not like, let's start talking about the future of retail. But I hesitate, not because I have negative thoughts. I don't really have negative thoughts. I think there are challenges, and I really always believe that any challenge that kind of comes your way is really an opportunity for people, because something's going to change and you can catch the wave in the right direction. But I think there's a ton of challenges for retail shops. And something I've noticed in the podcast is, and it's not just in your podcast, it's in Twitter, people talking about it, it's on Facebook, it's on the Comics Beat. Retailers are getting a little bit tribal. The controversy now that's coming out with Marvel lenticular covers and not carrying it or carrying it. It's like I don't think retailers as a whole being pugnacious with Marvel and DC. And they always blame Marvel, but Marvel and DC are like a monolith in a lot of ways. And in a lot of ways, they're totally, every single title is different. But to say, hey, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, it seems to be that those are kind of medium and smaller size stores, and the bigger stores are kind of trying to get with the program and say, I better sell more T-shirts and Funko Pops and trade paperbacks my business is moving to. And what is the future of the monthly single issue? But that the monthly single issue, as much as it's what most stores are dependent on, it's how they're made. I mean, DC Comics has 300 people, most of whose job it is to put out monthly single issues of comics, regardless of where the money's being made. I get that with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur at Marvel. I produce that book the same exact way as Spider-Man and X-Men when it doesn't sell that way. So, like I said, I think there's challenges. I think it's people have lost focus. I think people are kind of angry and looking to fight about things when they really should be looking about what the future opportunities are.
Yeah, well said.
That's going to get me in trouble, but I don't care. They didn't order enough copies of Rocket Girl 9 anyway. And Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur ain't selling tons in the single issue. No, but I mean, there's stores that have been super supportive too. So I honestly worry about that bias. It's like, oh, I say the big stores because they order Rocket Girl in good quantities, or they order Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur trades in good quantity. And and working on books that aren't Spider-Man and X-Men and Batman, books that I grew up reading, and even selling at alternate realities is pretty much a mainstream store. I worry, am I biased because my opportunities are now outside of the kind of monthly superhero market? Am I overplaying that? Maybe I am.
Sticking on the retail side here, one of my takeaways from the Midtown Comics episode was just how much they can do for independent comics
Absolutely.
and independent creators. One of the things that came up in the conversation was that, indie creators can go to Midtown and say, like, how is the book selling? What sort of feedback are you getting? And, they're able to order in quantities that maybe would make a difference.
Absolutely.
For someone like you.
Absolutely. Midtown is so important to creator-owned books. Gall, who does all the ordering for them, is so important, most important guy in comics for a lot of books that come out. They do real percentages that you see at the end of the day are just going to Midtown Comics, and I think it's disproportionate to smaller books. I think it's always kind of been the way that bigger stores sell not just more copies of everything, but higher proportion of the more second and third tier titles. And Midtown's a huge part of that. And they know it, and Gall knows it. Gall, he said it, I've overheard him, where he says, oh, yeah, we ordered a lot of number 1. Don't worry, I won't drop number 2 too much, because he knows how dependent the market is on it. And hopefully he's rewarded of having those books in stock and not sitting around and moving. So
interesting. And what is the relationship like with someone like him? And like, how do you foster that and get the book on the shelves in the first place?
I'm pausing because I'm trying to remember how I was first introduced to Gall, who works in the warehouse, but does all the ordering. And I don't know. I don't remember. It was probably because we had Rocket Girl coming out, or, we were both in the city, so we'll ask to do signings and whatnot. So maybe it was, hey, we're stocking this, we're stocking that. And I know at one point, it was probably the first time I met him, was we just went to the warehouse to sign a bunch of copies for their stock. So they'll do an in-store signing, but they'll also do stock signing. It could have been that Amy was doing a variant cover for them. That might have been first. I'm trying to remember what was first. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it was basically just simple networking. As important as he is, he's not a rock star. I don't think people stop Gall in line at the supermarket and say, "Hey, you're the guy who orders comic books from Midtown." You know what I mean? So, I'm sure I hope he likes that he's being appreciated. He's very important to the business.
Well, I don't know if you're an indie comic creator trying to break in. Maybe you have done your research and you know who he is. Maybe you are tracking him down.
Yeah, maybe, right? Like I said, I'm not saying, oh, you're blowing smoke. No, I mean, Gall's important. He cares, and he's a huge part of Midtown success in general too. I mean, he's a rock star in that world, or should be. It's just not a world full of rock stars. I met Garth Ennis once on the corner of Union Square Park. And I said, hey, you're Garth Ennis. And he was like a little bit weirded out. I said, are you Garth Ennis or something like that? And he was a little bit, this was like 7 or 8 years ago. He was a little bit weirded out, I think. But then I said, no, it's like I'm just a fan. And he was happy and said, oh, I've never had a fan stop me on the street before. But I said, oh, I work for Bob Schreck. I work at DC Comics. Then he was like a little less impressed because it wasn't like really just like a random person on the street. So then he went about his way. He had like a big Hawaiian shirt with like samurai design on it. Was very, very bizarre.
Have you ever been on the receiving end of that, where someone has recognized you out in the wild?
No, not out in the wild.
You were on Humans of New York, though.
I was on Humans of New York, yeah. I didn't know who the guy was at the time, so he said, and his name is Brandon also. He goes, I'm Brandon, whatever his last name is. And I'm famous, basically. Said, yeah. He said, this is good, you like it. So yeah, that got a lot of people on it. And I have met people who said they've read my books before, I guess, but not like I said, not on the street. No, and I've never seen somebody reading Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur on the subway or something. That would be cool.
Yeah. You know what's so fun? This is going to sound so vain.
Yeah.
I've been doing the podcast for a little while now. Right. It's about comic books. The first season very specifically was about one comic book store, and then the second season was about collecting. But you would think like stores and the people who go there, that's really the target audience.
Yeah.
But for all of these other stores I go to, I feel like one time someone might be like, oh, I recognize your voice. Like, I listen to the show. Never happens. That's okay.
Well, it happens to be like shops and conventions, but no, not in a while. But you'll get there.
That's okay. I'm not, it's not a big deal. It's just part of it's a little bit of an ego thing, but more so it's just like, how do I get these people listening to the show? Because these are the people I want. I want everybody, just to be clear, but, that audience in particular. But anyway. So you also mentioned with Rocket Girl other channels where the book does well. Are we talking like Amazon trade sales?
Yeah, I mean, trades, you can break it down in a million different ways, but what people don't, there's a lot of misperceptions out there from kind of the weekend warriors who look at sales and whatnot. And they look at the diamond charts over single issues and think that's all that there is. And it certainly isn't, and it hasn't been for a long time. And it used to be that you can maybe extrapolate a little better than you can now. If something's at the top of the monthly list, it'll probably be at the top of the trade paperback list and so on and so forth. But you have single issue sales, and along with kind of single issue sales, I would throw in digital sales because they usually sell current, new issue, new digital, they buy it. You have the collected edition that sells in comic stores too. I mean, I think I talked to a lot of big stores. A lot of the stores in New York are by default big stores, and they are selling more of the trade paperback as well. The single issues are going down, trade paperbacks are going up, and luckily the stores I've been talking to, the trade paperbacks are going up a little faster than the single issues are going down. I don't know that that's true in the smaller stores. I don't know that they kind of shelve it the same way, or they kind of have that in and out type of customer. But yeah, and then there's also the mass market trade paperback sales, which would be Amazon and Barnes & Noble and everything else. And then for print, you also have foreign reprints. And for Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, you have Scholastic, which is its own printing. It's a little undersized. They changed the price. They changed the paper quality. And that's just distributed in school book fairs, So there's a lot of different places where even just print is starting to make money. And then, like I said, you have someone wants to make a TV show out of it. Someone wants to make a movie out of it. Somebody wants to make a lunchbox out of it. There's all of that stuff. And it's real. I mean, there's two ways you can kind of play that. For Rocket Girl, we've always held out. People say, I want to kind of do a 20-minute short film and try to get funding and this, that, and the other thing, which is cool and interesting. But we're more impressed by the people who say, this should be the next Guardians of the Galaxy franchise, and I'm going to try to get, $100 million to start developing it. And, it's, to me, if it's 1,000,000 to 1 or 10,000 to 1, what's the difference? So, the difference, so we've always gone kind of with the bigger ideas and then say, hey, you only have a very short window. They want an option where no one else can kind of mess with it. And you get a little bit of money. That'd be great. But you can really sell an option where someone like takes a traditional Hollywood option on something and they might give you $3,000. They might give you $5,000. You might get lucky and get $10,000. But then they sit on it for 5 years and nobody ever does anything with it. So we've been kind of like, hey, see if you can make something happen and get a little bit of traction, and then it goes away, and then you give it to somebody else. And, they used to get like a bad name, like, oh, you're just writing a movie pitch. And, I've never done that. The books are always what's important. And a lot of people, I talk to major producers who've done tentpole movies about Rocket Girl. They probably talk to 50 other people about 50 other projects, so I'm not trying to say anything. But it always comes up like, oh, we'll try to make this. And to me, working on comics is great because the stuff gets made. If I work on a comic now, you're breaking into the business and stuff. But if I work on a comic now, it's going to get printed. It's going to get published. It's going to be a book that I can sell. So if you work in movies, who the hell knows what's going to happen, So
very fickle business. More.
Yeah, and I do not say, what does television need 18 months from now? And let me do a book like that. I do the books I want to do, and, there's always going to be some interest in outside media now because they just need content. So,
well, it sounds like you have a good attitude and outlook towards this.
Yeah, it's been all right.
One last thing on the retail side of it, because
sure. I can talk about retail all the time. Yeah.
Maybe more, but since I have you here, I think it would be interesting to get your take. One of the stores I visited, the episode has not been released yet, but it's Escape Pod Comics out on Long Island.
Menachem store.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, have you? Do you know?
I know Menachem. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're probably familiar then with his philosophy. I mean, he really pushes independent books. And one thing that he does at his store and that he advocates that other stores do is devote more shelf space and display space to independent books. His argument is that, you go into a lot of these stores and you see a huge display for, the traditional superhero books, but they don't need that. That people are going to seek out those books no matter what. But if you use that shelf space to showcase something else, like these independent creator-owned books, again, you can turn people onto them. You can get, more and different people into comics and into those titles. How do you feel about something as someone who who writes both for Marvel and for your creator-owned books?
Yeah, and Escape Pod does far more indie. Like, I don't even know if my stuff would be considered indie for Escape Pod. I mean, he does.
It's fun, you say that, but exactly. I know, I agree.
I mean, he does some stuff that's really out there. Every store kind of has to find its own way. I mean, Alternate Realities was 100 years ago. We tried to kind of sell more of that stuff and never moved. But you can't even compare because it was so long ago. This is a question that will take 15 podcasts to answer, though, because I really think a lot of things. I think first of all, you got to kind of do what's good for your store and what works for your store, and I also think you got to work for you. If you hate independent books, you're not going to sit there and make you put it on display. Who cares if you don't care what you're selling? It's not going to move either. And if you love it, it is much harder to sell an oddball copy of something than it is to sell Superman. But I really think that what Escape Pod and Menachem do great, and even some big stores do great, is kind of that focus on what they can't get other places. And it's also just the experience of walking into that store and seeing all of this stuff, shelved, and what he recommends and what he showcases within the store itself. It's not just like going to Amazon and knowing what you need and buying it, which you can totally do with the new Scott Snyder Batman, you know what I mean, or any other thing like that, and get it at 30% off and not have to worry about it. I think a lot of retailers are going to be challenged over the next few years, and is that a way to kind of survive? That hey, I do independent books, but maybe also they can be involved with the creators, they can be involved with the publishers, they can be really stuff that it's not easy or consistent to even know about, let alone find on Amazon. I think that's a good way to do it. Now, can you have that kind of business model? And he's closed on Saturdays, right? And
for the Sabbath.
Yeah, exactly, for the Sabbath. Can you have that kind of business model and be closed on Saturdays and do it on Broadway and 12th Street? I don't think so. But if you can work it in Huntington, and if you can do it in the middle of Iowa, yeah, I mean, there's going to be different kinds of stores that work, but that just makes every store more and more different, which is going to also make it harder to do single issues, and the people that it's harder for are the big guys, Marvel and DC. As much as they have the economies of scale in their favor, it's less and less efficient, I guess, for them to put out monthly books. I don't think monthly books are going away anytime soon, and like I said, they totally dominate the creative aspect, and that's going to be hard to shake. But yeah, if stores are worried about am I going to get enough foot traffic? Am I going to gross enough business? A place like Escape Pod at least has a better chance, because it's going to provide something that you can't get from Amazon, basically. Amazon's the biggest threat to comic shops, if you ask me, but who the hell isn't Amazon the biggest threat to? You know what I mean? That's nothing new. I mean, you don't see toy stores anymore. You don't see music stores and movie stores anymore. They just don't exist,
So is that what you see as the biggest challenge to stores, is that people are buying trades more than single issues, and they're getting them elsewhere for less?
Yeah, I think trades is certainly an inconvenient format. It doesn't, and people are, and as you have an older audience, and people complain about $3.99 for a price. It's like, well, if you multiply that by whatever and it gets into trade, it's usually a little bit less. But even if it's the same, trade's going to go on your shelf and it's going to sit there. Put it in a box, unless you're kind of a collector, it's a hobby market, and I don't know that a hobby market is going to survive. What hobby market is selling as storefront retail? And you can say, well, people buy LPs and people buy all kinds of oddball things, and maybe you could say, there's a lot of record stores kind of still in Manhattan, you know what I mean? But the means of production, Taylor Swift isn't making content designed around vinyl, you know what I mean? Vinyl is, like I said, it might be the premium, might be what the true aficionado likes the most, but it's, her entire business model is built around downloading MP3s, probably, So I don't. It's comics is in a funny spot where how can it continue creatively, production wise, to create this content for a monthly book for stores that are even the stores themselves are selling more and more trade paperbacks. So except that doesn't mean it's the death of comics, but it's a big change, and it's a big change that Marvel and DC will weather. Will all the stores? I don't know. Not all of them. That's what I think. I hope not.
No, it's always interesting to get your take on this, especially given your experience as a retailer.
Sure.
Kind of on that note, but more of the personal side. When I recorded with you the first time, it was during the closing days of Alternate Realities, and we talked about whether or not you might make an appearance.
Yeah, I never did. I said I was going to, and I didn't. No, I don't have a car. I can't get up there.
You got to White Plains for the Undiscovered Comic Con.
That's true. They paid me. They paid me a per diem though, and my travel expenses. That's what Alternate Realities had to do. They had to pay me to come. No, I went to Undiscovered Con because I worked at Alternate Realities for 100 years. And not that I did see some people that I knew from the store, and a couple people that knew me from the store. You know what I mean? Oh, you worked, But no, I just there's no interesting story behind why I didn't go. I intended to go and then got busy.
No, you know what? Honestly,
yeah.
I
I don't feel guilty about it or anything like that.
No, nor should you.
Yeah, but going to Undiscovered Con really was not. I like Westchester. I like the Westchester scene. You talk about retail. There was 1 million stores when I was a kid. There's not 1 million stores anymore. There's Alternate Realities was not the biggest store when it opened and when I was involved with it, and it became the biggest store, both by growth and other things falling off, and it became the only store for a while. As all due respect to the other ones that are around, and now there's a few small town shops basically. No central place for comics in Westchester, and that's a huge market. A huge market because you used to have 30 stores. 30 stores 20 years ago. I never made it up. Sorry.
No, that's quite. The sense I've always gotten from you from when I interviewed you for the documentary and then the podcast, and anytime I've spoken with you, is that you've really, made your peace with that time, and that's the past. That's sort of always the sense I've gotten.
Yeah, that's I can't say it better than that. No, but it's. I loved it. I loved working at the store. I'm proud of the store. I'm proud of its success. When it was still going strong, I'd always tell people it's still going strong. I think, Steve wasn't forced out. It's not like he, went bankrupt, but, he knew when time to hang it up. And, it's probably best that you or Bill Mayo or somebody else didn't take it over. Maybe it is. Someone told me that the whole shopping center now is being renovated or not? Is that true or not? See, look, you don't even drive by.
I do. Okay. So that space is still vacant.
Right.
The Mexican restaurant closed, and now it's a different one.
Okay.
The Chinese restaurant closed, and now it's a Vietnamese restaurant.
Okay. So no, it's still on. So someone said that no, the whole strip mall was being.
Not as far as I know.
No.
Maybe they heard something I didn't.
No, they were probably just looking at the wrong strip.
The AMP, that closed obviously. They all went out of business, but they're turning that into a gym.
Okay.
So yeah, the whole area there is.
It's not even Central Avenue. Isn't even the hub anymore, isn't it? People seem to go to downtown White Plains or something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah. No, it's changed. I'm really not in Westchester that often. I did take a train to Undiscovered Country.
Yeah, what was your take on that convention experience?
I had fun and I did well, and I was surprised at how well I did. I was sitting next to Matthew Rosenberg, who's writing for Marvel now, a bunch of stuff, and I did better than he did for sure. But the guests were like me and Matthew Rosenberg, and the Blue Power Ranger and the 1966 Batmobile, I think, were the top. So no, it was a small.
And Barb from Stranger Things.
Yeah. And it was a small show for guests, and you could think, oh well, means I'm going to do well because there's not going to be enough. There's not going to be competition. But the fear would be like, oh, there's not going to get a lot of people looking for that type of stuff. And what do I have? I have 3 or 4 different products that I can actually sell to people. But I did really well, and I was really happy to do it, and people were enthusiastic. So I liked that show. I got to look around also, and I still buy some comics and buy some odds and ends. So no, that was cool. I've been to a lot of shows at the County Center. Oh, a lot of shows over even more years, so it's not like it's a regular occurrence. But that was their second show, or
second.
Okay. So yeah, if there's a third, I hope
there will be. Yeah.
Well, I hope I get invited back.
I'm sure you will be.
Yeah. No, it was a lot of fun, and I did well, and it was cool, and people were excited to buy stuff. It's funny because now that I do Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and it makes sense, I sell a lot of Rocket Girl because people have the Moon Girl and they come, they say, oh, what's this Rocket Girl? And they pick that up. So
Yeah, that was actually, I'm going to shift now and get into the Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur side of this. And that was actually one of the things that I wanted to ask if, since you and Amy, so you and Amy co-wrote the first 18 issues?
Correct.
Right, and then you took over solo.
Correct.
So in the time that you guys were writing it and now that you've been writing it on your own, I was going to ask to what extent you've seen that kind of spur the Rocket Girl sales.
A lot anecdotally, like you're talking about at the shows, a lot of people come up and like if they meet me, they say, "Oh, I'm going to pick up Rocket Girl," also, but not a ton. Rocket Girl, like I said, has always kind of had a consistent sale. It's also, people used to like mistake Rocket Girl for being all ages, and it's not like terrible, but it's not an all ages book. It would be nice if I could say to Scholastic, hey, you guys distribute Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, you should see this book and put it in the school book fairs, but it's a little too adult, even though it's PG-13, it's not, like I said, nothing brutal or anything. So I can't really cash in on big opportunities for the Rocket Girl stuff. And it's really, so a little bit, not a ton. Rocket, I'm sure in the direct market, Amy's reputation and mine to some extent helped get a little bit of interest on the new series. But Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur is kind of its own thing, which is perfectly fine. It creates a lot of opportunities for writing gigs. People come up to me because, one, it's all ages, which is in my mind a kind of, I don't know any all ages creators, certainly not outside of comics. But I have an 8-year-old daughter. She just turned 8. And I read a lot of the stuff she reads, and it's terrible. And it's like, and I think, and I read a lot of comics that are designed for that audience, and they're not made by Marvel or DC, right? And they sell hundreds of thousands of copies, and they're terrible. So, and again, I say, well, if a kid likes them, they're fine. I'm not trying to say I can do what they do, and I've had interest from publishers saying, hey, can you do what you do at Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur for us? So.
Oh, cool. It's
opened a lot of doors, and I should have a lot of that stuff coming out in 2018. It's 2017, right? So 2018, I should have a lot more kind of all-ages mass market stuff coming out, which was totally 100%. The door was opened by Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which they like because it's different. It's quality. I mean, I've been making comics my whole life with the best people who make comics in the world, not just as a writer, but when I was an editor, working with top talent. So I can kind of put a book together really well, and kind of every book I've ever worked on, I've worked with great editors too, but I've always had a hand in kind of managing the book as well. Let's kind of do this way. So I've been able to, for the most part, there's some exceptions, but for the most part, I've been able to do that where let's work with this artist, let's do this kind of story, let's kind of try to do it this way. And so that skill also translates into interest of people who want comics, because as much as you can say comics is struggling in stores or here and there and every place else, the content is still in so much demand, and not just in the new Spider-Man movie and Walking Dead TV show and everything else. It's really is the skill level of professional comics creators is so high compared to television writers, movie writers, and forget about publishing. You know what I mean? I wish I was J.K. Rowling. Was that her even name? I don't even know. I don't read the Harry Potter stuff. I wish I wrote Hunger Games. It's not like it's all dog material, but there's a lot. They need a lot of content. And comics people, I think, kind of in their nature are really super equipped to do that type of stuff. And then they really like that it's an all-ages book that exists in the Marvel Universe. That's kind of a weird, nuanced approach, but it is that the Moon Girl takes place right next to the Hulk and the Avengers and everything else. That matters to them, that it kind of fits into that. And a lot of people also, a couple of things I've been approached to work on are kind of like adult, not adult like meaning not porno, you know what I mean, but like adult meaning, action, violent properties that they want to kind of de-age. I've gotten interest to do that stuff, and I did a little bit of that work for like, hey, we want to make a character Bible, like a video game company wants to make a pitch Bible for TV, but they have to de-age it. So they say, oh, you did all this, can you do that? And I was kind of interested in that for a while, but then it never gets made, and it's not my character stuff, and they pay you well, but I don't need the paycheck. So I'm doing less of that now, but a lot of those opportunities. This is a very long answer for an oddball question.
No, that's no, that's quite all right. Now, one of the reasons I always like to talk to you is that you have worn all of these different hats within the industry. You've been a retailer, you've been an editor, and now you're a creator.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that all of that makes you, much more well-rounded. And I think you could probably see the bigger picture in a way that maybe other people might not be able to do in the same way if they've only had one specific experience in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that's always benefited me. It's not even that I have the experiences. It's kind of maybe it's chicken and the egg, because a lot of the reason I kind of have these things in my toolbox is because I'm interested in it. I've always been interested in all these aspects. So it's not like I fall into all these oddball things. It's like, no, I really pursue them and like doing it. I work with Amy Reeder a lot. As far as, hey, where's this book going to do? What's the publishing end of it? When you work for Image and do a creator-owned book, you have to be really involved in that. And she's just as smart and could do all that stuff, but she has no interest in it. I have an interest, and that kind of creates the more diverse opportunities and the things that I've done. So the interest feeds the experience feeds the interest. And yeah, you have to worry about being a jack of all trades and a master of none sometimes, but I try to use it to my advantage that I know all different kinds of odds and ends in the business when a lot of people don't, so.
When you say like taking more of an active role with the Image book, like marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. Marketing and design and getting people excited and fan outreach and everything else. Marvel and DC have now adopted it. That's pretty new, but, Twitter wasn't around 7 years ago when I was still at DC, and Facebook was probably new. And as much as you had any kind of social media, as an editor, you were not allowed to do it. You're like, no, you don't do that. And creators were even, if a creator asked, can I do an interview? We'll talk to, and they still want you to talk to publicity first and everything else. But no, let them set it up, let them vet it, let them do all that type of stuff. That's changing. But when I was still at DC, that's the way it was. It's like, don't go out there and make it for yourself. But now it's not that the publicity department doesn't know what they're doing, but that's just, what's a publicity department going to do? Tell you what to tweet? They don't do that. They know that there's so many people following, so many fans following on that platform, that not only are you allowed to do it, you're kind of expected to do it. And all that just gets amplified when you're working for Image. And Image is the best deal for creators in the business by far. So I'm not trying to say that, you have to do it yourself, but you do have to do a lot of things yourself. It's one of the advantages of working for Image, because you can do it your way.
Right. With the social media presence, I wonder to what extent that plays a role in giving certain gigs to certain writers or artists, like knowing what kind of platform they have to help boost it.
Yeah. No, it does. I don't know if I think it's been a couple of years that they see when it doesn't always translate. You know what I mean? That, I have a lot of followers, but they don't sell a lot of books. And that person maybe doesn't have a ton of followers or isn't very active, but still sells a lot of books. But it goes into the calculus. I think a couple of years ago, it would be how many Twitter followers they have, give him the book. And now it's like, he does that, but do they respond to? I think it's a bit of both now.
Right.
But it's important. And again, certainly 7 years ago, 8 years ago, you weren't even allowed to talk. If they could shut everybody up, they would. Maybe they still would. I don't know.
Maybe it depends on the creator.
Yeah, exactly.
But with Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, so like I said, I read the first volume last night.
Cool.
And I got to tell you, I was going to read it no matter what, because I, want to keep up with what you're doing, and I knew we were going to be talking about it today.
Sure.
But, candidly, I was like, well, okay, it's this, preteen female protagonist. It's an all-ages book. I was like, it'll probably be cute and fun, but I don't know that I'm necessarily the target audience for it. And I loved it. I was really engaged by it, like way more than I was expecting to. Not that I had low expectations, but I just figured that it wasn't quite for me, and I loved it.
Yeah, it's funny because I'll take out your word, and you're not just being nice to me because you're interviewing me. But there are people who like it. I like it, So I said, no, it really is. We take all ages to mean all ages, and it's funny because Marvel marketing won't even ever call it an all ages book because they'll say that'll kill the sales. I think it's still rated teen, some ridiculous thing. But all ages is not children's literature. It's something that everybody should be able to watch. I don't think we're as acerbic as like The Simpsons, but there should be things that only the adults get when reading it, and not just jokes, but some of the situations. It's about growing up, but it's about remembering growing up too in a lot of the situations. And it's also about a girl and a dinosaur. I think 80% of it's about a smart girl and a dinosaur. So it's well done comics. I've learned working in comics that all kinds of genres, all kinds of stuff. It's well done is what makes it a good experience. I think people have that kind of, you know, it's always hard to sell that. You know, I'm going back to the alternate realities days now. It's like, well, if you like, you know, oh, I don't read manga. It's like, well, how can you not read Nausicaa? How can you not read Akira? How can you not read some of these stuff that certainly transcends? And there's a lot of goofy manga that like you would never think you'd read. Marmalade Boy or something that's really well done. You say it's so well done, I'm going to read it. But yeah, there's always that challenge working on Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. They're not going to buy it or try it just like it was Daredevil. But you know, that's the book we're working on, and I'm proud. I'm proud that we created a new character that people care about that showed up in 3 video games. That's now on issue. I'm working on, I don't know, issue 30 or something insane like that. So I think 22 really or 23 ahead. Is just out on the store. Yeah, exactly. So, and there's conspiracy theories about, they're only keeping Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur around because it's, you know, it's political and this. I said, no, it's actually supporting itself through different channels. Squirrel Girl is a huge success for Marvel. Ms. Marvel is a great character on so many different platforms for Marvel. You want to learn about this business. It could all be encapsulated by Deadpool, believe it or not. Deadpool sells a solid amount in comic shops, but why do they do 50 titles? Not because it sells 40,000, although that helps to do 50 books selling 40,000. It's not quite that much, but it'll always consistently sell as a monthly issue. It'll do well as a trade paperback in kind of its first iteration. And if you look at the book scan numbers, which kind of track Amazon and Barnes & Noble and many of the major books sellers, but not all of them, you see a lot of Deadpool trades that are 5 or 6 years old still popping up in the top 100, you know? It's just one of those things that makes money in every different direction for Marvel. And then they did a movie, which was a surprise success. And even though Marvel didn't produce it, it was just a property that seems to work. And I don't read Deadpool. I haven't read a Deadpool comic, I don't think ever. You know, maybe when it was Agent X 10 years ago.
That's when I read it too. That's
there
it.
There you go. I do like Gwenpool. That's a good book. If you want a recommendation, but no, it's the furthest thing from Moon Girl is probably Deadpool. It's just like I said, it works kind of in every channel solidly. Creators, editors, and retailers and comic shops are really what's responsible for the content. Still, hugely. You know, there are people there are some initiatives to make content in different ways or for different channels. But almost all of the creative energy goes into making these monthly books. But the monthly books is a fraction of a business that's in the business of creating IP anyway, not making money on publishing. So as much as it's not even the majority of print anymore, the monthly comics. It hasn't been for a couple of years now that trade paperbacks have surpassed print.
Right.
But
the rise of trades is nothing new.
Yeah, exactly. It was coming, and it's past the tipping point, and it continues to grow while single issues continue to shrink proportionately. You know, even if single issues have an up month or an up year, trades have a bigger one. You know, by and large. But yeah, there's certainly an ownership that I think retailers and creators and editorial take of the success. So, I work on the #1 book, and it's really myopic though.
Well, we veered back into the retail side, and I guess we've been talking about the challenges. I mean, if there's anything that you would recommend, like what are some potential solutions? Maybe solution is too strong a word, but initiatives that retailers can or should undertake to sort of help them in these changing times.
It's tough. I'll tell a side anecdote about inkers. I don't think a lot of people who want to get into the business. Everyone, of the entire pool of people who want to get into the business, you have people who want to write, you have people who want to edit, you have people who want to draw. Certainly, you have people who the small people who say, "Oh, I want to ink. I want to do more inking. I'd be a great inker." When I was doing portfolio reviews at DC 5 or 6 years ago, whenever it was that I stopped, it was true. It's even more true now. You want to be an inker? Be a colorist, because a lot of people are just shooting from pencils. They're inking their own stuff. It's a lot easier. It's just not the type of gig that you're going to get. And inkers that are really good and really experienced and have long-lasting relationships with pencilers, they're going to keep all those jobs, and they're not going to create new jobs for new inkers. So it's something that's not the strong place to be anymore. And I don't want to be that harsh to retailers, but I don't know if retail is the place to be. Selling monthly comics, and even if you're in a place where you can afford the rent, and you have a nice community store, they're going to be around, and you got nothing to worry about 5 years from now, maybe not 10, but it's diminishing. It's diminishing in its importance to, and at some point, Marvel and DC are going to be the first to do it. I mean, but at some point, Marvel and DC are going to realize that, hey, we put a lot of energy into these monthly books, and it's great. It's a tradition, but it doesn't match the return on the market. So slowly but surely, I think the way that you're making them is going to change. And then once that changes, the attention is going to change. And they're going to be focused on original graphic novels. They're going to be focused on just the character content. Maybe that'll be digital. Digital still hasn't even taken off, and it still can. You know what I mean? Digital is still such a small part of the business. That could blow up at any time. But the trade paperbacks are doing well. So is the answer making a retail store that sells trade paperbacks? Probably not, because how are you going to compete with Amazon? So retail stores, went through a lot of different phases. I think I said this on the last podcast. I say it a lot. Where you started off with, you could get books on the newsstand. So stores became the collector's hub. I need back issues. I want a Spider-Man #1. That's why I go to stores, for back issues. When I was working in alternate realities, it transitioned to like entertainment. It was at that time you could still go to a Blockbuster too. I want these stories. I got to get them at the comic store because they have everything, and they'll get what I want. And it was for readers, and it was about the content and the stories. Now you have Amazon and you have digital. You can download whatever you want, and maybe it doesn't take up any space. So the stores have become destinations. But I don't know that any destination business is really doing so well anymore. Certainly not selling $3.99 magazines. So what's the fourth? Phase? I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, appearances, still making it a destination. Kind of like I said, I think comics retail, the future is T-shirts and Funko Pop. And I think it's, we talked about Escape Pod Comics. I think it's smaller publishers. I think it doesn't have to be indies that you never heard of, but I think relationships with Image, relationships with an aggressive store like Valiant that wants to grow in the hobby market, IDW, Dark Horse, all those things, that might be a place to focus. That's what I would be doing if I was a retailer. But you also have to kind of, the store you're in, where you're putting me. But if I can, create that, I would try to say, hey, it's smaller publishers, more interaction with the creators who are willing and excited to do that type of stuff, more merchandising, things like that. But I don't know, conventions are growing. So what makes conventions work? Is it meeting the creators? Is it buying stuff you can't get? Maybe is it the community? Maybe it's all a little bit of that stuff, But I don't know that conventions are certainly getting more and more attendance. I don't know if vendors at conventions are making any more money than they ever have. It's a challenge. I don't know. I mean, except, and that sounds like negative. To me, like I said, maybe that's not why I'm not in retail anymore. I don't see the future in a way that would be exciting for me to participate in. And that was true 10 years ago, where it was the only way alternate realities could get bigger is if we opened another store or something like that. We're doing it. We kind of hit our head on the ceiling as far as the way we were doing business. And I couldn't think of or wasn't interested enough in thinking of new ways to do it. So, like I said, now ask me that same question with publishing. What's the future of comics? I can give you 10 different ideas and easily. And is that because it's a better field? I don't know. It might be, but that's where my head is. So, I don't know. Some genius retailer out there is going to figure it out.
Hopefully, yeah. I mean, obviously the comic shop as an institution is something that, we have deep ties to. And I wouldn't have spent as much time chronicling them, otherwise.
Like I said,
I want to see them.
You're the Silver Surfer. Galactus is right over your shoulder. You go to comic shops and they close.
I prefer not to think of it that way.
Okay.
Although alternate realities and Jay's Comics.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have a great track record. I'm sorry to all the stores I've been to.
No, but I mean, not that you want to make excuses, but I don't. You could ask me, what is the future of books? I don't know that it's any different. But I really think the challenge is going to come. I can't imagine why retailers are going to be blindsided, but they don't seem to see it. Is that Marvel and DC are going to pivot at some point, and they're going to pivot really slow, And I think the pivot's already started, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's really slow. It's going to take a really long time. But I think that the future of comics is pivoting, and I don't think the retailers see it. And I think they think that they can resist, and Marvel's going to change, and DC's going to change because they resisted. And it's just, I mean, I don't see it. I don't, why is that going to happen? Why? I mean, there's less and less stores. There's some stores that open, but what's the last mega store that's opened? I don't even know. A lot of big stores, strong stores have closed. Alternate Realities was a big, strong store, top 100 account, and it closed, and it created a vacuum that nobody filled. I know there's a few Westchester stores, but when Alternate Realities was a top 100 store, there was also a few satellite stores. There were even more. And there's something like, hey, I won't order these Marvel lenticular covers, and then one day they'll get the message and they'll start. I think when you do that, and this is, I don't work for Marvel. I'm not a retailer. I do work for Marvel as a freelancer, but I don't say this on Marvel's behalf. I don't say this because I have inside information. I know Dan DiDio because I worked in the DC offices. I don't know David Gabriel. I don't know, anybody running anything. I kind of know their personalities, but I don't know them personally. So there's no inside information. It's complete speculation on my part. But, every comic that's made is made so the retailer in a small comic shop can make money. You 100% have that. That's the reality of the market, and you should be taking advantage. You should be making hay while the sun shines, because I can't see that they're going to go, and that's slowly but surely moving away towards trade paperbacks, towards just IP generation, Netflix series, and all that other stuff. I can't imagine the mentality, and you see it a lot, of people thinking somehow they're going to bully it back, that it's going to go back in the direction towards the making content for monthly content for comic shops. If you think that Marvel and DC have a different philosophy on that, I don't care how long you've been in the retail business. I think you're stone cold wrong. And it's not because they hate it. They love it. They wish that they could just make the comics the same. The reason it takes so long to switch is because they love making comics for the comic shop and the monthly reader. That's how they grew up on it. That's how they do it. That's how everything is set up. They wish they could never change. But they have to change, and are changing slowly. And some people are excited about it. And they're going to, and those people who are excited by the change are probably going to be the people who rise in positions of power. But yeah, and like I said, that sounds so negative, but to me, it's just like, okay, so find your opportunity in that reality.
When you mentioned that the industry is already pivoting, are you pointing to things like DC's Earth One graphic novels?
Yeah. Earth One, I was very familiar with because I'm good friends with Shane Davis.
Just in case anyone is unfamiliar, continuity-free original graphic novels.
Right, but specifically Superman Earth One is one of the most important books from a publishing standpoint that's come out in the last 10 years. It did super well. They made all the classic mistakes, not printing enough. It came out right before Christmas, then it wasn't available throughout Christmas. Yada, yada, yada. Sold 100,000 copies plus. It was a New York Times bestseller for a long time. And there were a couple more that they did Batman, they did a couple more Superman, but it was such a success, and still it didn't change how DC does things. And that's really telling, that they have a huge success, but it's very hard to continue on it, because that book was very hard to make. I know Shane was really frustrated every month, every day of working on that book, because it was, I'm waiting for a script, or they're not doing it, or then it was out of print, it was not out of print. And there were such crazy ideas that they had that made sense at the time, but now you look back and say, that's a silly thing. Like, it's doing so well, we should re-release it as single issues, and do all this other. I mean, that's where the mentality was. It really was so hard to get out of the habit of making comics. Not just a habit because you're lazy, and it's a habit. No, because the entire business is run that way. But yeah, it was a huge success. The ensuing volumes there, and the Batman and everything else they did were fine successes.
Yeah, they're doing Green Lantern. They did Wonder Woman. They did Teen Titans.
Yeah, and they just it was for every book, for every editor working on that, for every designer, for everybody in marketing, for everybody in publicity, it was an uphill battle. And a successful book 5 years ago lost an uphill battle. Now, if that book came out today, it would, but it did push, like I said, it did push the books in a little bit of a direction. Before, if Earth One came out today, I think it would have more of an influence, because the business is already moving that way slightly. But that it didn't was a huge victory for monthly comics, but is that good best for the overall health of the business? I don't know.
Well, I think you've put your finger on this paradigm shift that's
Yeah.
happening, and we'll see what transpires over these coming years and how retailers and publishers respond and react to it.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be full circle. Maybe the hobby is what's going to save shops. A place like Zap Comics and that, where they're like, oh, we do a lot of back issues and people, collectors, and it really is, it's back to the hobby market. Yeah.
Circling back to Moon Girl.
Yes.
So how did this come about? Was this something that you guys pitched on your own, or was more of a like, we want to do something with this Devil Dinosaur property and we're soliciting submissions? How did it work?
What happened was, again, there was a desire, especially for Amy at the time, and we were working together, obviously, on Moon Girl.
On Rocket Girl.
Yeah. So there was, a lot of times like, oh man, we should work on different stuff because we work on everything together, and so why do we do that, right? Rocket Girl should be enough, but it was very consuming. So there was a desire to have more on the shelf because Rocket Girl's schedule, even at best, was going to be maybe every couple of months we could get a book out. That's Amy working 20-hour days. It's still, she's coloring it, she's doing everything else. She's very meticulous. So the idea was, hey, wouldn't it? And Amy can, even today, but certainly at the time, could call 4 different publishers, say, I want a cover gig, and get 8 different offers after she called 4 by the end of the day. She's offered a cover gig every week, I'm sure, still. Do you want to, there was at some point a thought like, hey, you shouldn't take up a cover. This was just her and I talking. You shouldn't take a cover gig unless you want, like, maybe you could write it, because that wouldn't even, it's a different part of your brain. You can rest your hand, because she does, she got to watch her wrist and her thumb and everything else. So you could write something and what you do the covers for, it gives you the kind of that, and you have more creative control, and you can kind of do stuff rather than just being the cover artist for Spider-Man or whatever the case may be. And that was kind of when we were thinking about it, and DC had contacted her maybe about that, and she kind of floated it there. And there was a Power Girl story, a series that was that they were kind of thinking about doing, and then Marvel, we said, oh, you should kind of just like cast a wider net. So we went to Marvel, and basically Marvel was super excited to have us, and from their point of view, it was, we like what you do on Rocket Girl, do you want to do it for us? And at Marvel, and even at DC a little bit, Amy's not as conversant with the characters, plus she kind of doesn't want to maybe deal every day with the input that you have to get from editorial dealing, so I could kind of filter that. So we decided to work together again on something like that, and Marvel just wanted us to bring our Rocket Girl magic over to them, in their words. And we had a meeting, and we were going to talk about what characters to possibly do, and we always wanted to do something obscure because it would have less interference and less
more freedom,
more creative freedom, exactly, doing it. And I think Devil Dinosaur was the first thing offered at that meeting. We talked about a few other odds and ends. Devil Dinosaur had no interest for a person like Amy, but then it was Mark Panici who said, oh, what about Moon Girl? And because Amy didn't know Devil Dinosaur, didn't know Moon Boy, didn't know anything like that, but that we could really invent a new character. And not even a legacy character, but just kind of say, okay, well, if it's really about her, and she brings a dinosaur into, because the old Devil Dinosaur, people read it, took place in Dinosaur Land, fighting cavemen all day long, and occasionally aliens invading Dinosaur Land. But no, we can put it in New York, we make it more about the character. And they were pretty much locked into that. It was originally going to be kind of like an Iron Man spinoff, but it joined the Inhuman family later. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun to develop, and it became, and I say this a lot, but it's true. If you look at my files on my computer, it says Devil Dinosaur, and that was the name of the book for a long time. And then we were doing logos, and it came like, oh, there was a Devil Dinosaur and Moon Girl logo. So that's pretty cool. They're going to put Moon Girl on the title, because it was never Devil Dinosaur and Moon Boy. It was just Devil Dinosaur, right. And then it became Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Now it's all anyone cares about is Moon Girl, which is cool. So
yeah,
Jack Kirby got 9 issues out of it. We got 30 plus coming. So
one thing that really resonated with me, especially in that first arc, was her desire to cure herself of the Inhuman gene and just be normal. And there's a part in the storyline where her parents really crack down on her, and she's just going to live a normal life and be a normal girl.
Right.
And so she's going to school, and she's, in gym class, and just all these ordinary, mundane things. And she has this moment where she's like, is this really what I what I want to be? Like, this is what normal is like. Is this really what I want? And it kind of resonated with me because, I always think about, like, my life would be a lot easier if I wasn't, doing all this podcast stuff and trying to kickstart a documentary. It'd be a lot less stressful, but I wouldn't be me. And I don't think I would enjoy that.
Yeah.
So that kind of, like, that in particular resonated with me.
Oh, yeah. It's like, and it's hard to talk about on any deep level because there's a contradiction in everything that she does, and that's what I think life is like. She is very independent. She very much believes who she is and what's important, and has no doubt about it. But deep down, maybe there is a doubt. You know what I mean? And she isn't so confident. And if she could just make friends with other people like she thinks other people make friends, maybe she wouldn't have to say, "Oh, this is beneath me." That goes into the writing. I don't know how much of it comes up to the surface, but that's how you kind of, it's yes and no with everything that she does. And it's funny because there's, certainly somebody not wanting powers or to change has been done before. And in comics, to me, it would be interesting. It's like, well, because Ms. Marvel had made such an impact, and she always wanted to be a superhero. And, careful what you wish for type of thing. So I said, wouldn't it be interesting? It's just kind of, and that is really flipping Ms. Marvel, that specific book, on its head with Lunella. It was like, well, what if the last thing she wants to do is actually become an Inhuman? And she's terrified of it. Because I think kids, I remember are afraid of change, you know what I mean? Especially at that age. And that's become, that's why it's good working with not just Amy, but Natasha Bustos. And Emily Shaw, who was the original assistant editor, to get that kind of girls' perspective, or people who were girls 10 or 20 years ago, about, not wanting to change and everything is fine and that, and, having kind of such in a way, a fragile sense of who she is, so she really has to build it up that's the most important. She doesn't want anything to change. Yeah. And then, a big dinosaur. It's just it's like I said, who for whatever reason we've said, make him as smart as a dog, and who cares? He's already red and not really biologically accurate, so might as well throw it in there. And just as a foil, just somebody who's always there to her. So every time she talks to him, she's really talking to a part of herself. That's kind of the trick to it. But yeah.
Right. Hey, man, I watched 10 years of Smallville, and that was all about Clark not wanting to be different. So I'm right at home with Moon Girl.
Yeah.
As far as the writing process goes, I know now you've taken over writing solo, but when you guys were co-writing, what was that dynamic like? Were you dividing up scenes? Were you sitting down together and breaking the story and then splitting up individual pages? How did that process work?
It would change. So it was never consistent, but most of the time we would sit and kind of talk it through as to what we wanted to happen. And then, maybe I would outline it then to kind of give it its first structure. And then Amy would, maybe not with every scene, but with certain scenes kind of say, okay, this is going to be a cool visual scene, or maybe a scene that she really wanted to talk about. So she would break down like very specific scenes, and I would do some other scenes. Maybe we'd kind of trade off. But yeah, basically, we would talk. We would kind of figure out what we wanted to do. I would fit it into a 20-page chapter, and then she would. Then from there, we would kind of like split scenes up, and she might do a few more, or a few less, depending on the issue. But yeah, pretty simply, and she would. And we would both dialogue with kind of whatever we were working on, and then kind of go over it and give it a pass. And it wasn't always the smoothest, working relationship. But on that, Rocket Girl, we tend to get along better. Not that it was bad, but it would be like, no, I needed this in here, and by you doing that, it's ruining it. And that probably came, to be honest, more from me than it did from her. And I try not to be somebody who's precious, and I'm always somebody who tried to, put the artist first when I was a writer. But kind of co-writing was a little bit hard at some points, just because it would be like, and then you'd also get edits, especially on that first arc, more than you get more edits on issue 1 and 2 and 3 than you do on 31, 32, and 33, because everyone's kind of hit a stride. So it would be like, and then they want to change stuff, and then Amy was better at being the bad guy as far as don't change this, no, we want to do that, no, you can't, because Amy could go and get angry, and they would listen to her more than they listened to me. She was the bad cop, and I was the good cop for sure. And
I mean, how much can
but then I would be the one telling Amy, you have to be the bad cop about this. And she wouldn't care. She's like, well, why don't you just do it? It's like, no, it ruins everything. And, but it was fine. I mean, it was, it became the reason, Amy, wanted to do more Rocket Girl and get done with Rocket Girl so she could do some other projects and that type of stuff. So it was all good, but it was probably more work for us to work together than it would have been, doing two different books. So.
If you don't mind me asking, and certainly you don't need any specific numbers or anything, but having created the character of Moon Girl,
right.
I mean, what sort of deal do you have with Marvel? Like when she's featured elsewhere, are you getting a royalty?
No, yeah, you have to ask me again because that's still up in the air. So,
gotcha.
I don't want to take anything for granted or put words in anyone's mouth, but it's Devil Dinosaur was a Marvel character. This is a work for hire situation. Going in, what Marvel and DC do is that they have participation for certain characters, and it's always that goes to review, and that's what takes so long. It's like, okay, well, these people say, hey, they contributed something new. You don't get equity in the sense of any ownership for it, but they have participation programs for characters that you create. And like I said, I won't hesitate to say that I am the creator of Moon Girl, along with Amy Reeder and Natasha Bustos also. The three of us created that character. And there's some participation. It was years ago easier at DC. You would just fill it. There was a one page. It was a pink form that you would fill out, and then you'd put it in, and you'd wait for it to come back. I don't know quite the DC, the Marvel method, but only that we have put in the request, and we're told that it's being considered, and hopefully soon it will be. Hey, this is what you get, and you just get a little bit of bonus.
Right.
Sometimes it's a flat fee, like, hey, we're going to pay you X dollars for because it showed up in a video game or it showed up on a T-shirt, and it's a flat fee. Sometimes it's a percentage cut up. I can speak. At DC, it's what used to happen is like, okay, the Superman movie came out. We'll send you a check. Burbank will send a check. This is back when DC was still in New York. And you'd call Warner Brothers Burbank. We'd send them a check. It might be for $50,000. It might be for $2 million. And Ed and Min would have to basically go through the movie and say, okay, well, who kind of ideas showed up for this $2 million participation check, and how much should they get? And it would just be a bunch of guys trying to be fair and try not to miss anybody, and saying, hey, this scene was right out of Earth One, so it's we're going to give them a percentage of the pie. And and they would just work it out, and it would take a long time because, as you can imagine, it's not the most efficient thing. But there was when it gets into that, it gets weird. And even though your agreement, and then I'm talking about the DC agreement, only because, like I said, I'm still waiting on Marvel. It would be, be a page of this is what you get paid. But then when it came to actually doing it, it took forever. But there's been participation for creators at Marvel and DC, and it changes, actually. I think people who made stuff in 1975 have a different kind of calculation as people who are making stuff in 2017. So,
right. Yeah. Yes, I know from my legal training that, it would be work for hire, but I did know that they did have those arrangements with creators.
Yeah, exactly.
So I was curious
and
what form
it's
that took.
like I said, and you're the lawyer, but you're never entitled to it. You know what I mean? It's always like, hey, we're going to give you participation as a bonus.
Cool. And what about podcasting? Where are you? What's the status of that?
Yeah, we did Podcorn for a long time, and just kind of fell off with that is going to be relaunched with a lot of other people who are interested, and I'll play a smaller part in it, and Amy will play an even smaller part than me. But you will see some more Podcorn podcast coming up, I think, any week now, kind of a new format, but. The cleaning up the archives as we speak, and probably still doing it for a little bit while longer. But just make that kind of available, and just because there's a platform for it, and we used to have a fair amount of listeners, some other comics folk have expressed an interest. So I think they're gonna, kind of be a little bit more, a little bit more inconsistent, but coming out more often. So yeah.
Cool. Very good. Well, we'll keep an eye out for all that.
Yeah.
Thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you, Brandon. And as always, just keep punching.